My mother-in-law and I were fighting. My husband suddenly rushed in. He slapped me and yelled at me to leave, but they knew nothing. I was the one personally making the $10,000 monthly transfers, and the luxurious estate in Greenwich. Connecticut was also under my name. It was a rainy night in the New York metropolitan area. A fine drizzle was falling like a spiderweb, and the wind was cutting through the skin with intense cold. The exclusive gated community in Greenwich, which was usually vibrant, seemed strangely melancholic. It was as if the entire household was holding its breath, waiting for a tragedy. I am Sophia Miller, and I have been married into this family for 3 years. My husband, Michael, has his own company. In the eyes of others, he is a successful businessman. My mother-in-law is Eleanor. Her mouth is always full of talk about how traditional and educated their family is. But it is traditional according to her own rules, where even breathing requires permission. My sister-in-law is Chloe. She is a few years younger than me, good with words, an expert at being spoiled and leaning on others. That night for dinner, I prepared a hot, delicate chicken cons. Michael had not been sleeping well these past few days, and I thought something light and comforting would be good for him. I simmered it on low heat, carefully skimming the broth, and seasoning it with just a pinch of salt, perfectly suited for the palate of older people. The table was set with baked halibut, a bowl of pickled vegetables, and a plate of sautéed green beans with garlic. Not to brag, but when there are elders in the house, a daughter-in-law's only wish is for the food to be delicious and the dinner to be quiet to maintain peace. Ella Laner sat at the head of the table. She looked at the bowl of soup, and even before she tasted it, she let out a deep, heavy sigh. She took a spoon, frowned as if she had swallowed something disgusting, and said, "What is this, Sophia? Soup or ocean water?" I calmly stood up. "But Mother Eleanor, I barely put any salt. If you want, I can add more broth to suit your taste." She did not answer. She slammed the spoon down hard. The sound of metal against porcelain echoed like a sharp crack that made me jump. Then she looked me directly in the eye. Her voice was not loud, but it was as sharp as a knife. "You have been a daughter-in-law here for years, but you still do not know how to cook a decent soup. Who do you think you are?" I was stunned. That line, "Who do you think you are?" She had said it over and over again, but today it was as cold as the wind outside. Chloe, who was beside her, was picking at the fish while scrolling on her phone. Hearing that, she looked up with a smirk she could not fully hide. I still tried to maintain my composure. "Mom, I am sorry if you did not like it. I can prepare something else right now." Suddenly, Eleanor spat a sip of the soup directly onto the floor. Honestly, at that moment, I felt like I had been slapped. This was no longer about criticizing the soup. This was a degradation of my character. "There, who could swallow something this salty? You do not know how to cook, but you always show off as if you are so educated. I do not know what kind of family you came from." She dropped the sentence, changing the subject as if she had been ready for it. "You are here because this family took you in. What have you contributed to this house?" I heard that with a lump in my throat. For 3 years, I had been told countless times similar things, that I was living off them, that marrying Michael was a blessing. But the most terrifying part was that she was saying this in front of my husband, in front of my sister-in-law, as if I were a kitchen maid, not a wife, and daughter-in-law. I took a deep breath, trying to repeat the saying to myself that an uneasy peace is better than a raging war. But another phrase popped into my mind. The tree wants peace, but the wind will not stop. How long will I endure? Exactly at that moment, the door opened. Michael walked in. His jacket had splashes of rain, and he was still holding his keys. His gaze shifted from the table to the floor. Eleanor's face instantly changed. Seeing Michael, she sighed, her voice trembling as if she had suffered a grave injustice. "Michael, look at the kind of woman you brought into this house. She cooked a soup so salty it is like the devil made it. And when I told her, she even argued back." I turned to Michael. "Honey, I did not argue. I just said that Michael did not let me finish." He looked at me with the eyes of a judge about to issue a sentence. "Apologize to my mother. Here in this house, when Mom speaks, you listen. There is nothing to argue about. I was left speechless. You have not even tasted it, and you are already making me apologize. I know the soup is not salty. Taste it, and then we will talk. I had barely finished the sentence. I saw how Michael's jaw tensed. There are men who do not care about the truth. They just want others to obey. He stepped closer. His voice was low, but as hard as steel. Are you telling me what to do? I shook my head. I just want you to be fair. A mocking laugh escaped Eleanor. Fair. A daughter-in-law demanding justice from her mother-in-law. At my age, this is the first time I have seen such disrespect. Chloe, at that moment, put her phone down and added a comment as light as air, but which froze my blood. Sister Sophia, if Mom has advice, just listen. What is the tension for? I looked at Michael, searching for even a little support. Just one word. But he did not look at the soup. He did not look at the truth. All he saw was his supposedly hurt mother. Smack. I saw only a flash of light before my eyes. My ears rang and my left cheek burned. I stumbled. My knees hit the cold marble floor. My lip bled and the metallic taste mixed with the smell of the still steaming soup, creating a scent I will never forget for the rest of my life. Eleanor just stood there unmoving. More than that, a slight smile traced her lips as if she had been rewarded for a great performance. Michael took a deep breath as if he had done the right thing. Then he delivered a dry, final word. Leave. I braced my hands on the floor to stand up. They were shaking, not from pain, but from humiliation. I looked at Michael, then at Eleanor and Chloe, one by one. In that moment, I understood a simple bitter truth. In this house, no matter how well I cooked, no matter how much I endured, I would always be the one who had to apologize. I wiped the blood from my lip with the back of my hand and adjusted my clothes out of reflex. I did not cry, not because I was strong, but because tears at that moment were too cheap. No one would bother to look at them. I said in a convincingly calm voice, Fine, I will leave. I walked to the door and opened it. The drizzle hit my face with intense cold. Behind me, no one stopped me. No one called out. There was only the sound of cutlery and a sigh of satisfaction from Eleanor, like a period at the end of my 3 years of submission. I quickly stepped out onto the porch. The fine rain clung to my hair, chilling it. The tiles were slippery, so I had to walk close to the wall so I would not fall. The yellow street lights of the gated community reflected in the puddles, creating a beautiful but sad scene, just like a luxurious home, but without warmth. I did not have a coat or a phone. In my pocket, I only had a small wallet. My chest was pounding heavily, but my mind was strangely clear, as if a part of me had been forcibly awakened. 3 years as a daughter-in-law, believing in patience to maintain peace in the house. I was obedient, tolerant, lowering my voice to have quiet. Eleanor was difficult to get along with, and I told myself that is just how older people are. Michael was impulsive, and I convinced myself that men face a lot of pressure at work. Chloe was capricious, and I blamed it on her youth. I made all the excuses, swallowing my resentment. But the more you swallow, the more they get used to it. Once my mother-in-law got sick, I stayed up all night at the hospital, changing her cold compresses, running to buy hot soup. The next morning, all she said was, "That is what a daughter-in-law should do." I forced a smile. I thought then that it did not matter as long as she got well. Once Michael came home with a sad face, saying the company had money problems. I secretly transferred a large sum to help him, asking that the transfer be done in a way that would save his reputation. When the crisis passed, he hugged me and said I was his rock. Then, in front of his mother, he told a different version, as if he had fixed everything himself. I heard it and just stayed silent. Loyalty cannot always compete with cunning. I was too loyal and they took it for granted. A strong wind blew. I hugged myself, shivering. My cheek was still burning. My lips stung. But that pain brought me back to the present. I could not collapse here, right in the subdivision where they considered me a freeloader. At the guard house at the entrance, the light was on. The security guard, an older man, was sitting and drinking hot tea. Seeing me, he stood up with a worried voice. "Mom Sophia, where are you going at this hour? And in the rain?" I tried to make my voice sound normal. "May I please borrow your phone?" I left mine. The man looked at me for a moment without further questions. He handed me his phone and grabbed a thin raincoat hanging nearby. Please wear this. It is freezing. I put on the raincoat and dialed a number with trembling hands. I looked at my hands. One still smelled like dish soap. The other was covered in cold raindrops. I thought if I worked hard, the family would respect me. But that night, I understood. Respect is not begged for. The person I called was someone I had avoided calling for a long time because I wanted to prove I could stand on my own 2 feet in my husband's house. Mr. Peterson, it is Sophia. On the other line, there were a few seconds of silence. Then, Mr. Peterson's voice sounded completely awake. Ma'am, Sophia, where are you at this hour? I am at the subdivision entrance. Can you please pick me up? I need to go back to a safe place. Mr. Peterson's answer was brief. Do not move from there. I am on my way. I returned the phone to the guard and thanked him. The man sighed softly. There is a limit to patience. Now, when you give them a hand, they will take the whole arm. I did not answer. I just nodded. I felt like a rope that had kept me tense for 3 years had just snapped, freeing me from my chains. I stayed under the small roof of the guardhouse, looking at the deserted road. Occasionally, a car passed by, leaving a long trail of water. I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own life. I had lived in that house for a long time, thinking I belonged there. It turned out my only possessions were my obligations. About 20 minutes passed. A black town car stopped. The window rolled down, and I saw Mr. Peterson. His hair had some gray in it now, but his gaze was just as sharp as the days I still lived in my parents' house. He opened the back door. Get in. Now, I got in. The heat from the air conditioning wrapped around me like a blanket. Mr. Peterson offered me a bottle of warm water and some tissues without bombarding me with questions. His silence almost made me cry, but I bit my lip to stop it. Tears would not help. I wiped my face and said in a hoarse voice, Mr. Peterson, I have a favor to ask. Just tell me what you need starting this month. Please stop the money transfers to that house, and please check all the paperwork for the house's services, electricity, water, internet. Whose name are they under? Mr. Peterson nodded slightly. Of course, if that is your decision, I will support you. The car started moving. In the side mirror, the entrance to the subdivision gradually grew smaller, like a chapter of my life drifting away. I did not feel relief immediately, but I knew that from that moment on, I would never have to beg anyone for the right to be respected. When the car stopped, Mr. Peterson was already opening the door, holding an umbrella so I could enter the lobby. I did not go straight to my parents' house. Calling them at that hour would only worry them. I chose an upscale extended stay hotel that my family often used for emergencies. Clean, quiet, and private. Upon arriving in the room, I changed clothes and washed my face. The warm water on my left cheek caused a slight sting. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. The red mark was still there. My lips still hurt. I did not feel self-pity. I only saw one thing clearly. If I bowed again today, tomorrow that slap would become a habit. Mr. Peterson asked from outside, Do we need to call a doctor? I shook my head. No need. Mr. Peterson, I need the papers. Which papers? Now, the title to the house, the utility receipts, and the bank statements from the past few years. I want to clear everything up right away. Mr. Peterson nodded. He moved with the same efficiency he had shown taking care of my family for decades. He did not ask why, only what was needed. I sat at the desk. I took a deep breath and called the second person that night, Attorney Thompson. It is Sophia. On the other line, there was a pause. Then the lawyer's voice sounded alert. Sophia, what happened at this hour? I need your legal help tonight. I want to review all the documents of my personal assets and cancel some financial authorizations. Attorney Thompson did not ask about my personal life. He focused solely on the work. Where are you? The property in question is the estate in Greenwich. Correct. Right. I will send you the case number tomorrow morning. Please have someone check the ownership, the status of the utilities, and the HOA administration contract. I want everything done by the book. Okay, ma'am, if the law is on your side, there is nothing to fear as long as we hold the papers. Hearing him say that made me straighten my back. Right. I do not need to win through tears. I just need to be right. I forwarded Attorney Thompson a folder I already had saved. My parents, business people for many years, always taught me something. On the day I married Michael, I was a bit hurt because my parents made me sign some premarital donation contracts and personal asset documents. I thought then that they were being too cautious. Now I understood it was not a lack of trust. It was a clear way of protecting their daughter. Half an hour later, Mr. Peterson returned and placed a stack of documents and a laptop on the table. Look, now, here is the copy of the title, the donation contract, receipts for the main furniture, and the service contracts from the subdivision. Everything is under your name. I scrutinized each page, not to boast about what I had, but to ensure I was standing on my own ground. The red seals, the clear letters that usually looked dry in this moment, felt like armor. I opened my bank account and reviewed the regular transfers over the past 3 years. Every month, I transferred $10,000 to Eleanor. Every 5th of the month, always on time. I even asked the bank to put in the memo for Michael. I did that out of respect for my husband, thinking a humiliated man would easily get angry and create problems. Now, thinking about it, I could only laugh bitterly. They accepted my money and still called me a freeloader. It is true that some people bite the hand that feeds them. The only difference is I was the one paying for the food. I clicked on the recurring transfer section. My finger paused for a moment where I asked myself if I was being too cruel. But suddenly the image of the slap flashed in my mind and the word leave echoed in my head like a cell door slamming shut. I hit cancel. The screen showed a confirmation. I entered the code. Done. I felt a massive relief, as if a deeply embedded thorn had been pulled from my flesh. It no longer hurt. It was just an emptiness. I continued on the banking app, requesting a block on all extension cards and spending authorizations under my name. The bank employee confirmed the operation in a polite voice and acted quickly. Everything was done smoothly, without shouting, without insults. But I knew that on the other side it would be a deafening alarm. Mr. Peterson asked, "Do you want us to cut the electricity, water, and internet right now?" "Not yet. Let us follow the process. Tomorrow, when Attorney Thompson confirms everything, we will send the official request to the administration. I do not want anyone saying I acted out of emotion." Mr. Peterson looked at me with a mix of pity and admiration. "You have changed." Now, I leaned back in the chair and said in a soft voice, "I did not change, Mr. Peterson. I just stopped fooling myself." It was almost morning. I opened the security camera app to check the house remotely, not to spy, but to know what kind of people I had been living with. In the kitchen, the light was still on. Michael was pacing back and forth, looking frustrated. Ella Laner was sitting with her arms crossed, talking nonstop, and Chloe was sitting on the sofa, scrolling on her phone as if the house was not on fire. No one mentioned how I walked out into the rain. No one asked if I was hurt. Their only concern was whether Sophia would come back tomorrow to cook. I turned off the screen. I had a lump in my throat, but I did not cry. They say a woman's value is measured by her husband. I do not know if that is true, but I am sure a woman fails when she cannot defend her own dignity. I stood up and closed the curtains. It was still raining outside. I got a glass of warm water and drank it slowly. For the first time in years, I felt I no longer had to wait for anyone's permission to be at peace. The morning of the 5th of the month was still cold. A cold that did not come from the heavy rain, but slowly seeped through the cracks. I woke up earlier than usual and dressed for work. No one was rushing me. No one was calling me to come down to the kitchen. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. I did not go back to the subdivision. I went straight to the headquarters of Vanguard Holdings. The feeling of walking into the polished lobby, being greeted by employees with good morning, "Ma'am Sophia," felt a bit new, not out of pride, but because I suddenly remembered the days I was washing dishes in my mother-in-law's house, and they called me with zero respect. Like a maid, I was the same person, but in different environments. The treatment was drastically different. I had a quick meeting with my assistant and signed some documents. My mind was working with the precision of a clock. But a small part of me was still waiting for news from Mr. Peterson and Attorney Thompson. I did not need to hear that they were suffering. I just needed to know that everything was proceeding legally at the right pace. At 8:45 a.m., my phone vibrated. A short message from Mr. Peterson. They are waiting for the money. No. I read it and put the phone down. I suddenly remembered that for 3 years, every 5th of the month, Eleanor dressed nicer than usual. She would sit in the living room with her phone on the table like a scepter of power. By 900 a.m., she would smile with satisfaction and make a few calls to subtly brag to her friends. My son loves his mother so much. Every month, he has a gift for me. I heard her once and just turned away so Michael would not be embarrassed. I thought saving my husband's reputation was keeping the peace in the house. But life is strange. There are people who, when you save their reputation, think they have the right to step on you. At 8:58 a.m., my assistant brought me coffee. I took a sip without tasting it. When 900 a.m. struck, I looked at the clock and then at the phone screen as if waiting for an invisible notification. Of course, nothing came. I canceled the transfer order last night, but in another place, I could imagine what that moment of nothingness looked like. Around 9:05 a.m., Mr. Peterson sent another message. Eleanor is starting to get impatient. She is calling Michael. I did not even need to see it. I knew exactly Eleanor's tone when she was annoyed. She does not yell right away. Instead, she pronounces every word with an emphasis that makes the listener feel guilty. I opened the camera app, not to spy, but to record the truth. The screen showed the living room of the house. Ella Laner was sitting upright, arms crossed. Michael, standing by the window, was fidgeting with his phone. Ella Laner spoke without a smile, her gaze blank. Michael, look closely. It is late and I have not received any notification. Michael tried to stay calm. I am sure the bank is just delayed. Mom, let me call the accountant. A long H was Eleanor's response. What delayed? Every month, it arrives at the exact same time. Do not tell me your company has run out of money. Chloe came down the stairs, her hair still messy, and yawned. Mom, maybe Sister Sophia just forgot to transfer it. She is forgetful. Hearing that, I almost laughed. If I forgot, that whole house would starve to death. But fine, let them believe what they want to believe. The truth will speak. Michael called the accountant. I could not hear what was being said on the other line, but I saw how Michael's face changed from annoyance to confusion and then to paleness. He said into the phone with a stiff voice, "What do you mean it is not company money? What are you saying?" Hearing not company money, Eleanor stood up. What do you mean? No, where does the money come from then? Michael covered the microphone and looked at his mother. His lips moved as if he could not swallow. Let me clear this up first. I watched the scene with cold calmness because I knew the moment they faced the truth, that is where they would be hurt the most, not because of the loss of money, but because of the loss of the illusion that they were the ones giving handouts. A few minutes passed. Michael put the phone down. He stood motionless as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. Eleanor could not wait and slammed the table. Speak. What is happening? Michael answered weakly. That transfer. It did not come from the company account. The accountant says the money coming in these past years came from Sophia's personal account. It was as if the air was sucked out of the room. Eleanor's jaw dropped. She blinked repeatedly. Chloe was stunned. Her phone slipped onto the sofa without her noticing. Eleanor stuttered. What did you say? Sophia was the one making the transfers, and the memo saying it was for me. She put that. Michael forced a smile, the smile of someone whose pride had been shattered. Sophia probably put that memo to save my reputation. Eleanor, as if a blindfold had been ripped from her eyes, turned to Michael, the pitch of her voice rising in a mix of anger and fear. So all this time I have been bragging that my son supports me. But it was her money. The veins in her neck popped. She wanted to argue back. But what could she say that she did not know? Not knowing and still accepting the praise. Listening to his mother's bragging and letting his wife carry the weight. Chloe interjected at that moment, her voice weaker. If that is the case, Sister Sophia really cut off the supply. Michael, yelled to hide his shame. "Shut up," Eleanor whispered. "She dared to cut my money. She is my daughter-in-law. She should be respectful." I heard the word respectful and felt a bitter irony. People often use morality as a whip, but they forget that morality is not an excuse to take advantage. I just wanted them to ask themselves, if I were still there, would they treat me as a part of the family or as an ATM with feelings? Michael started calling me nonstop. I saw his name flashing on the screen over and over. I did not answer, not because I wanted to torture him, but because I understood that if I answered at that moment, they would not apologize. They would demand their rights. I turned off the cameras in my office. I stood up, adjusted the sleeves of my blazer and my watch. A small gesture, but I felt like I was fixing my life. They say you do not close the stable door after the horse has bolted. But there are families where not only the horse is lost, but the stable as well, and only then do they notice who built it. I sat down and continued working. Outside, the sky was still gray, but inside me something lit up. It was not hope for them, but clarity for me. Near noon, Attorney Thompson sent a short message. "File is complete. Request sent to the HOA administration. Following the template, we can add our seal. Go ahead," I replied, delegating the task to Mr. Peterson. I did not feel powerful or evil. I just felt things needed to be clear. If they dared to slap me and throw me out in the middle of a rainy night, I could not act impulsively and give them a reason to say I was a vengeful woman or acting with malicious intent. Mr. Peterson called. His voice was steady. "The request to suspend the utilities based on your rights as the owner has been sent. The administration confirmed they will act according to regulations." I hung up and looked out the window. New York in the middle of the rainy season. The sky was not pouring heavily, but a layer of gray clouds enveloped everything as if clinging to every corner. I remembered a saying, "A fish rots from the head down," but there are houses that do not just have a leak. The very inhabitants chopped down the pillar supporting them. By afternoon, I turned the cameras back on for a few minutes. I did not watch for long, just enough to know that everything was happening as permitted by the documents. In the house, Eleanor was sitting in the middle of the living room, her face red, fanning herself as if she was about to catch fire. Michael was pacing, typing rapidly on his phone. Chloe was applying lipstick in front of the mirror with an annoyed expression, as if she was going to be late for a date. Eleanor yelled, "Michael, call her. She is your wife. She cannot just cut off my money. Can you not control her?" Michael gritted his teeth. "Mom, calm down. Let me talk to her." Chloe, looking at the two, interjected with a complaining but stinging voice. "Brother, I have plans this afternoon. Give me some money. My friends are waiting." Michael snapped his head toward her. "And you are still thinking about going out?" Chloe pouted. "I do not earn anything. I am used to this. If you do not give it to me, how will I survive?" That phrase, "I am used to this," sounded light, but it was a slap to a man trying to be the pillar of a family with a hollow foundation. I looked at the scene and suddenly laughed. That house had long operated as a money-spending machine. When there is money, everyone is nice. When there is none, their true colors show. Exactly at that moment, a sound came from Michael's phone. He was trying to pay with a card, perhaps to order something or pay a bill. The screen showed transaction denied. He froze for a moment. He tried again. Denied. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. "Use your black card." Michael swallowed hard, trying to keep a steady voice. "Probably just a bank error." I knew it was not an error. I blocked the extension card under my name. I did not need to remind him. Reality would remind him in the most painful way. Chloe snatched Michael's phone, looked at the screen, and gasped, "Hey, why was mine denied at the store?" "Too. I thought your card was so good." Eleanor started to panic, trying to maintain her image. "No money. How can you do business?" "Michael, do not tell me you let a woman control everything." Michael's face turned red, but before he could argue, the lights in the house flickered and suddenly went out. At the same time, the air purifier went silent. The air conditioning stopped. The space seemed to lose its warmth. Eleanor stood up. The power went out. Michael ran to the circuit breaker, flipping the switches with no success. He grabbed his phone and called the subdivision administration. "Hurry, the power is out at my house." Please check. A moment later, Michael was still holding the phone. I did not hear what was said to him, but I saw how his face turned pale. He turned to his mother, blinking as if in disbelief. Eleanor looked at him with wide eyes. What did they say? Michael's voice was hoarse. They said they suspended the service at the request of the legal owner. The air grew thick. Eleanor froze and then whispered every word. Who is the owner? Michael did not want to say it, but he could not avoid it. Sophia Eleanor, as if gasoline had been poured on a fire, screamed. A daughter-in-law. I heard the word daughter-in-law and felt a massive irony. When they needed me to cook and clean, they called me daughter-in-law. When they slapped me and threw me out, they treated me like a stranger. It turned out my title in that family was just a garment they wore when convenient and took off when it was not before they could recover. The flow of water from the faucet started to weaken until it became just a drip. Chloe screamed, Mom, the water is gone too, and I am not done washing my face. Eleanor turned to Michael. Her voice was in order. Go to the administration. Tell them you are her husband, that you should have a say. Michael put on his loafers and ran outside so fast he almost slipped. A man used to sitting on the throne of his house was now running like he was fleeing his debts. I watched the scene with no joy. I just realized that Michael's supposed position was built on my silence. If I stayed quiet, he stood tall. If I stood up, he trembled. A few minutes later, Michael returned, still holding his phone. He yelled as if to convince himself. They said they only talked to the person named on the contract or their legal representative with a power of attorney. A bitter laugh escaped Chloe. You're not named on anything. That phrase was like a stab. Michael suddenly turned to his sister, his eyes bloodshot. If you speak again, I will throw you out. Chloe went quiet, but bit her lip. She was the typical spoiled person facing hardship for the first time. Eleanor, on the other hand, quickly changed tactics. If earlier she was screaming, now her voice softened. Michael, call her. Talk to her sweetly. Tell her that her mother-in-law is old, that she should not cross the line. People will talk about us. Hearing people will talk about us. I sighed. The most important thing to her was still her image, not her health, not morality, but what people would say. I turned off the cameras in my office. I opened my planner and signed a few more documents. My hands were no longer shaking. I did not answer Michael's repeated calls. I was not avoiding him. I just lost the habit of explaining myself to someone who raised a hand against me. With a rope, a calf is tied, but with gentleness, it is guided. I was too gentle for too long until they thought I was a rope anyone could step on. Now I am only doing one thing, tying the knots correctly, in the right place, no more, no less. The afternoon of the 5th of the month, while in a meeting, my phone vibrated. A message from Attorney Thompson. My team is on site. We will make a complete report. I just read it and put the phone away. I was not begging anyone for pity, nor did I need anyone to witness my resilience. I just needed everything to be done according to process for the future. No one could say I acted out of caprice or malicious intent. At the end of the meeting, I checked the cameras again for a few minutes. The scene in front of the house was clear. It was still raining. The ground was wet and the yellow street lights reflected like mirrors. Attorney Thompson was there with a sheriff's deputy, both impeccably dressed, along with a representative from the subdivision's HOA. No one was yelling. No one was threatening. Only formal and correct words were heard. Everyone was playing their part. The doorbell rang. Eleanor, wrapped in a robe, had a tense face as if greeting her subordinates. Seeing Attorney Thompson, she frowned. Who are you? What are you doing in front of my house? Attorney Thompson showed his ID. His voice was clear. We legally represent Ma'am Sophia. We are here today to deliver an eviction notice and demand the surrender of the property. Eleanor froze for a moment and then laughed mockingly, a laugh to hide her panic. Oh, my daughter-in-law is playing this game. This house belongs to my son. The sheriff opened his folder and read every line in a clear voice. I watched it and it felt strange. For years, no one listened to my words in that house. Now, just a few lines read from a piece of paper silenced them. Michael ran out of the house. He looked far from the usual homeowner. His hair was messy. his clothes wrinkled, his eyes tense. Attorney Thompson, this is too much. This is a family issue. We will talk to Sophia. Attorney Thompson did not answer with anger. He just handed him the document. Mr. Michael, I am acting according to the law. If you wish to communicate, you may do so in writing or through your legal representative. Eleanor snatched the paper, glanced at it, and yelled, What is this? 24 hours. What right do you have to kick us out of our own house? The HOA representative standing beside him spoke in a calm but firm voice. Ngang, this is a request from the legal owner. We are just following what is stated in the contract. Hearing owner, Ella Lehner seemed to lose her mind. She rushed at the notice that had just been taped to the door and started trying to tear it off. It was clear to see that the paper was laminated and attached with industrial adhesive. She pulled so hard she broke a nail. She scratched. She pulled, but it was useless. A daughter-in-law playing this dirty. She screamed while trying. Neighbors began to peek out. First one looking through a crack in the door, then another. Whispers sprouted like the wind. Oh, property recovery. The owner is actually the daughter-in-law, but she always bragged the house belonged to her son. I heard those comments without joy. I just realized that the truth is like water. No matter how much you try to stop it, it always finds a way to flow. Michael, standing beside her, had a burning face. He looked at the neighbors, then at his mother, who was scratching at the notice like a madwoman. The humiliation was so massive he did not know where to hide. Mom, that is enough. Go inside, he said while pulling her arm. Ella Lehner broke free and pointed at him. You see, this is all your fault because you married a woman who steps on your mother. And you, Michael, gritted his teeth. His voice was a mix of anger and fear. Mom, shut up. We are in the middle of the street. Eleanor instantly started crying, but a theatrical cry for people to see. My God, I am old and this is how he treats me. World, look at this. Chloe ran out of the house, looked at the paper and then at the neighbors, her face turning pale. She was used to always looking perfect, but now in the middle of a crowd, she felt stripped of her makeup. She pulled Michael's arm and whispered, Brother, this is embarrassing. What do we do? Michael did not answer. He went inside the house like a cornered man. I saw him searching, opening drawers, cabinets, with the haste of someone looking for a life preserver. Ella Lehner was still trying to remove the paper. The more she pulled, the more it tore and the more obvious her helplessness became. Attorney Thompson stood unmoving, not arguing. The sheriff was writing a report, noting the reaction and taking photos. All of that would be a legal barrier in the future, making anyone think twice before twisting the story. A moment later, Attorney Thompson clearly stated, We have properly delivered the notice. The 24-hour grace period starts now. We ask that you prepare to surrender the property. Otherwise, we will enforce a forced eviction according to the law. Michael came out, his face white, trying to steady his voice. He said, I will call Sophia. I will talk to her. You have the right to call. Attorney Thompson nodded, but the final decision lies with the owner. Michael took his phone and dialed my number. I still did not answer, but this time he did not just call. He also sent a message. The camera did not show the content, but I imagined the tone a mix of threat and plea. I turned off the cameras. I did not want to see anymore, not out of fear of softening, but because I understood that if I kept watching, they would pull me back into the circle of emotion, the circle people use to tie women down with the word family. I stood up and got a glass of water. I suddenly remembered an old proverb. Cunning is for outsiders, but between siblings, there should be no fighting. I used to live by that saying, trying everything to keep the family from fighting. But they looked at me as the easy duck to attack. The phone rang again. This time, it was Mr. Peterson. Michael is rummaging through the safety deposit box. I closed my eyes for a moment. I knew that safety deposit box. Michael always bragged that it was a family secret, that only he knew the combination. But there are secrets that when cornered, you open with your own hands, only to discover where you truly stand. I did not ask anything else. I just opened my planner and noted the time, keeping everything in order, because from now on, the story was no longer about kitchen arguments. It was the collapse of a fake power built on my submission. While working, Mr. Peterson called. His voice was unhurried but clear. "Ma'am, Michael has opened the safety deposit box." I did not ask how. I imagined that when you still have 100 shows to put on, you cling to pride, but when you are pushed against the wall, pride becomes a tight dress you have to take off. I just said, "Keep an eye on him. Please, if anything happens, notify Attorney Thompson." "Understood," he said, and hung up. I put the phone down. My fingers hammered on the desk, not out of nervousness, but to remind myself, do not let emotion guide you. In your weakest moment, that is when it is easiest to give in, and giving in to the wrong people condemns you for life. I opened the cameras again, this time not to see the shouting at the door, but to see how they faced the truth. In Michael's home office, the safety deposit box was attached to the wall. Michael was kneeling on the floor, pulling out stacks of paper. His eyes moved rapidly. Eleanor, standing behind him, was struggling to breathe. Chloe was in a corner, hugging her phone, but not looking at it. Her face was a mix of shock and fear. Michael pulled out a book with a red cover. He held it and stared at it as if he could not believe what he was holding. Eleanor snatched it. She opened it to the first page, and her eyes traveled across the lines. She read out loud, "Steady at first, owner of the property, Sophia Miller." Reaching the end, her voice broke as if something was choking her. She read it again. "Still the same name. Michael is not there," she said, as if questioning herself. Then she suddenly turned to her son. "Why is your name not there?" Michael's lips moved, but no sound came out. Chloe approached, peeked, and froze, too, probably for the first time in her life. She understood that where she lived was not her brother's house, as she always bragged, but the house of the sister-in-law she constantly belittled. A dry laugh escaped Eleanor, the laugh of someone running out of breath. "Impossible. In this house. I have lived here since you got married. How can my son's name not be there?" Michael took the book and flipped the pages. At the back, there was a stapled stack of papers with a red seal and clear letters. Every clause was detailed. I knew that document. My own father gave it to me to sign before the wedding. At that time, he told me softly, "Love people, but do not let them disrespect you." I felt uncomfortable then, thinking my father was worrying too much. Michael read it quickly. His face turned as white as paper. He looked up at his mother, the look of someone whose pride had just been punched. "This is a premarital asset trust and donation contract," he said slowly, as if stumbling over the words. Ella Laner snatched the paper, her hands shaking. "Personal asset. What does that mean?" A forced sigh escaped Michael as if holding back anger. "It means the house was already under Sophia's name before the wedding. It is not a marital asset," Chloe whispered. "So all this time—" "Shut up," Michael yelled. Ella Laner's anger suddenly shifted from panic to a rage she could not direct at her daughter-in-law because she was no longer there. She turned and poured it all on her son. "My God, Michael, what kind of husband are you? You got married and you do not know what is in your name. You let her control everything." Michael stood up, his face red. "You speak as if it is easy." "I did not know, or I did not dare to ask. If I asked, would you have liked it? All you wanted to hear was that your son is a genius, that people praise him. Where did the money come from? You did not care." Eleanor, as if tapped on a sensitive spot. Her voice cracked. "What are you saying? I raised you. Do I not have the right to enjoy it?" Michael smiled bitterly. Enjoy calling my wife a freeloader, forcing me to slap her in the middle of the living room." Hearing that, I paused, not because I was hurt, but because I understood something clearly. Michael knew he was wrong. He knew it very well, but he chose the wrong path because he thought I would always endure. Eleanor could not argue and used her usual tactic, cry and find Chloe as an ally. "Chloe, my child, tell me, is what your sister-in-law did not cruel, throwing her mother-in-law out onto the street?" Chloe bit her lip, looking at the title deed as if it were an invisible slap. She did not dare to speak loudly. She just whispered, "I do not know." Eleanor choked on her anger. "How can you not know? If so, who knows? Who will take care of this?" Michael slammed the paper on the table. "Take care of what? It is too late." I turned off the cameras. I did not want to hear any more blaming. In that family, when things went well, everyone claimed the merit. When things went bad, everyone blamed each other. That vicious cycle spun endlessly, and the person in the middle was always crushed. I stood up, went to the hallway, and called my father. He answered quickly, his voice deep. Dad, you were right. I did not tell him the whole story. I just said, you saw what I did not see. There was a pause, and then he answered, I did not want you to ever have to use that, but I wanted even less for them to treat you like a shadow. I swallowed. I will do things right. Do not worry, he said slowly, as if weighing every word. In life, if you love someone, love them to the end. If you are angry at someone, do it fully. If you choose to defend your dignity, do not do it halfway. Doing it halfway is tying yourself up. Yes, I said with tears in my eyes, but none fell. I was no longer the daughter-in-law who only knew how to bow. I am Sophia, and I understand where my boundaries lie. I sent a message to Attorney Thompson. They have seen the title and the personal asset contract. He replied immediately, Understood. Do not worry. The papers have spoken. We will just follow the path. I returned to my desk, opened the computer, and continued with my pending tasks. The feeling at that moment was not revenge, but recovery. Recovering my house, recovering my rights, and most importantly, recovering myself. The morning of the 6th of the month, the sky was still overcast, as if someone was scattering water dust. I arrived at the office early, not to hide, but to stay busy, to prevent my mind from drifting into thoughts that would soften me. At 8:30 a.m., Attorney Thompson called brief. My team is starting to move. I did not ask about their reaction. I had seen enough on the cameras these past few days. If others do not love you, love yourself first. I turned on the cameras for just a few minutes. There were more people in front of the house than yesterday. The sheriff standing firm, an HOA representative, and a security team. Everything according to protocol. Everyone speaking properly. No yelling or threats. This legality was the most terrifying part because there was no way to twist it. Michael came out, face haggard, clothes wrinkled, looking around as if searching for a way out. Ella Lehner was behind him in a thick coat, still trying to fake superiority. Chloe was by the door hugging a large bag, her eyes red, but she still had makeup on as if even in crying she needed to look pretty. The sheriff read the surrender notice again, reminding them that the grace period was over. Attorney Thompson stated clearly, we will now enforce the forced eviction. According to regulations, the family may only take their personal belongings. The rest of the property will be cross-checked with receipts. Eleanor immediately yelled, personal belongings. What is that? In this house, everything is ours. Attorney Thompson did not argue. He just showed her a list. You may take clothes, IDs, personal items. The rest will be documented in its current state. Eleanor yelled, this is a setup. My daughter-in-law has no soul. No one responded to the words. No soul. The people just made their reports as if those screams were just wind noise. When we argued in the house, my words drowned because there was no referee. But when the law speaks, it does not care who screams the loudest. The neighbors gathered, more of them, some from afar, some hiding behind their doors. I saw several glances directed at Eleanor, a mix of curiosity and disgust. The most terrifying part is not being evicted, but being looked at like a cheap theater show. Michael tried to keep a steady voice. Attorney Thompson, let me talk to Sophia for a moment. We will surrender the house, but at least let me talk to her. Mr. Michael, today is a day for legal process. If you want a sentimental conversation, you can send her a letter later. Attorney Thompson answered. Michael froze. He turned to his mother, looking for help. But Eleanor at that moment only knew how to throw tantrums. Michael, you are a man. Do something. Michael exploded. For the first time, I saw him yell at his mother in front of strangers. Mom, shut up. The more you talk, the more you humiliate us. Eleanor froze and then cried. But this time the tears had no power. It was the cry of someone who had just fallen from her throne. Chloe started bringing out boxes from the house, hugging them and speaking rapidly. A security agent politely said, please show the receipt or proof that this is in your name. Chloe froze and turned to Michael. Brother, say something. Michael looked down. He knew very well those purchases were made using the extension card under my name. Chloe bit her lip, trying to save the situation. My sister-in-law is rich anyway. What is it to her if she gifts me a few things? Hearing that gave me chills. Gifting is my right. Snatching is the habit of someone who believes they are entitled to everything. Eleanor, seeing her daughter blocked, rushed over. The things in this house. You treat them like a national treasure. My son is here. He is the owner. An HOA employee answered with a phrase that silenced them all. Excuse me, the owner listed in the records is Ma'am Sophia. Michael bowed his head. My name echoing at the door of the house in front of the neighbors was like a final seal. I was not there, but my identity was there solid and clear. When it came time to sign the surrender report, Michael's hands were shaking. Eleanor refused to sign, screaming that their house was being stolen. The sheriff calmly noted it down. The interested party refuses to cooperate in signing. The more they refused, the more they jeopardized themselves. But they did not understand that. When they were allowed to take their personal belongings, the scene was pathetic and painfully real. Clothes stuffed into plastic trash bags, a pair of slippers, a few bottles of medicine, documents, things they previously considered worthless were now all they could carry. Ella Laner walked out the door and looked at the house one last time. I thought she would curse, but she remained motionless, blinking. Perhaps she was thinking about the times she sat in the living room bragging. The phrases she threw at me that were now coming back to her. Michael followed, dragging a suitcase, his shoulders slumped. He no longer looked like a businessman, but a man who had just fallen from what he believed was his. Dear listeners, if this story touched the hearts of those who have been daughters-in-law, please leave a like to support the channel. If you are in a situation where your dignity was insulted this way, would you choose to endure or defend yourself? Please leave your comments below. I turned off the cameras. I did not want to watch those steps anymore. Those bags were enough to close a chapter where I forced myself to suffer to maintain peace. Almost an hour passed. Mr. Peterson sent a message. They have left the house. Ma'am, go ahead. I replied. Just a few words, nothing else, because everything else was already written in red seals in the reports. In the truth, I bent down to organize a stack of documents on my desk. My left cheek still hurt a bit when touched, but my heart was no longer afraid of the cold. There are prices to pay to grow, and today, the one paying the price was not me. The rental they ended up in was down an alley in a rundown area. No shining signs, just a small old plaque. I did not need to see the cameras to imagine the smell of dampness in those temporary places, the smell of blankets that do not dry properly, of cigarette smoke clinging to the walls, of strong, cheap floor cleaner. That morning, I received a short audio recording from Mr. Peterson. Not that he was spying, but Michael had dialed the wrong number when calling to complain and quickly hung up. Mr. Peterson just wrote, "Listen to this, so you know, not to hurt you." I was no longer hurt. I just listened to it like a report of consequences. Ella Laner was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a cup of instant ramen. The steam fogged up her glasses. She blew on it, took a sip, and choked, coughing nonstop. My God, this is so salty, she complained between coughs. Chloe, standing in front of the mirror, was trying to comb her hair, frowning. Mom, stop complaining. I cannot stand this room. The blankets stink and the bathroom is disgusting. Michael, sitting on a plastic chair, was staring at his phone, his brow furrowed like crumpled paper. Hearing his mother, he yelled, "If you are tasting it, add more water. You choose now to be picky." Eleanor stared at him, her voice rising. "Picky? I am not used to eating this garbage. For years, you ate home-cooked meals, hot soup, coconut fish, and now you force me." Michael slammed his phone on the table. The sound was like a coffin lid shutting. "Mom, enough. Who put us here? You complained about the soup she cooked. You forced me to hurt her, and now you sit there and blame me." Chloe, scared, interjected with her usual attempt to calm the situation. "Brother, do not treat Mom like that. She did that for our family." Michael turned to his sister, his eyes red. "Our family? Do you know how you have been living these past years? Spending uncontrollably, bragging about things you do not own. Where did you think that money came from? Chloe froze. Then her natural parasitic nature resurfaced. She spoke quickly, as if afraid of being left behind. But I am your sister. If you do not take care of me, who will? A dry laugh escaped Michael. Take care. With what? With my title as director of a fake company. Hearing that, Eleanor changed her tone. It became sweet, like someone afraid of falling off her pedestal. Call Sophia. Talk to her sweetly. Marital problems are fixed at home. No need to blow this out of proportion. Michael did not answer right away. He looked at his hands as if they were something foreign. Then he said in a weak voice, like someone who knows he is about to lose everything, Mom, do you think she is still my wife? Of course, Ella Laner quickly replied as if clinging to morality. Marriage is a duty. Spouses must help each other. What she did was wrong. Michael laughed. This time, not dry, but bitter. Help each other. How? When I slapped her in front of you and Chloe. You talk about duty. But did you say anything then to stop me? Eleanor instantly fell silent. The silence of someone who cannot argue back, but also refuses to admit fault. She took another sip of noodles. This time, slowly, as if the salt was waking her up. At that point, I turned off the recording. I did not want to be someone who counts the misfortunes of others. I had stepped out of that vicious cycle, and I needed to build new habits. I pictured myself at Vanguard Holdings. That morning, I had a meeting with strategic partners. I entered the room with my hair tied back in an impeccable suit, my voice clear. Some colleagues noticed the slight bruise on my cheek, but no one asked. In this environment, boundaries are respected. In my mother-in-law's house, my boundaries were trampled by a simple, when Mom speaks, you listen. After the meeting, I called my assistant and asked for a complete report on all projects related to Michael's company, supply contracts, revenues, the indirect support provided by Vanguard Holdings. The numbers that came up made me laugh, slightly, not out of joy, but out of astonishment. It turned out I was helping him much more than I thought. I called Attorney Thompson, the commercial collaboration with Michael's company. I want to suspend it according to the contract clauses. Total or gradual suspension? Attorney Thompson asked. Suspension. According to the agreement with proper notice. No sudden attacks. But from now on, I will not sign any renewals. Understood. I will prepare the documents. Remember, if you do it cleanly. Okay, I said, and hung up. I turned to my assistant. Send an official notice to the purchasing department and supply chain. Suspend priority and order assignments to Michael's company. If anyone asks, the answer is due to strategic adjustment. The assistant nodded without asking for reasons. That is the difference between a professional organization and a family that imposes authority. Here, work is done by process, not through tears. By noon, I received a call from Michael. I did not answer. The message that followed was longer than usual. I did not read it all. Just the first few words were a familiar tone of blaming, sometimes begging, sometimes using his mother to soften me. I deleted the message, not to escape, but so I would not be dragged back into the mud. They say the one who runs is chased, but the one who returns is not. But I saw clearly that some people return not out of regret, but because they have run out of handouts. In the afternoon, I stepped out onto the office balcony to get some air. I suddenly remembered the chicken cons from that night. I remembered the moment Eleanor spatted on the floor as if spitting on my dignity. I told myself a simple phrase. Better to be poor with dignity than rich without principles. Dignity here does not refer to money, but to conscience, to boundaries. What happened today was not loud or dramatic, not the shouting type, but I knew that silent changes are the ones that keep people awake at night the most. Strangely, for the first time in a long time, I ate well, not because the food was better, but because I no longer had to swallow it with the feeling of being despised. That morning, I received an internal email stating that all departments had completed the notification of the change in collaboration, following processes, deadlines, and exact terminology. I just read it, signed the confirmation, and set it aside. No noise, But I knew on the other side they were hearing the roof of their house cracking. Michael, however, did not have my calm. He started the day with back-to-back calls to partners, banks, and suppliers. When no one answered, he sent messages. When there was no response, he went in person. By noon, Attorney Thompson sent a message. Michael's company has received the notice of termination of priority. Suppliers are blocking deliveries and partners are demanding a re-evaluation. Understood, I replied. Nothing else. I did not want to hear lamentations. I wanted things to prove themselves. Life does not collapse because of me. It collapses because of what they built on contempt. Through a remote camera, I no longer looked at the old house, but somewhere else. Michael's office. I had access because I previously helped with the security infrastructure, but I only opened it once to check the situation. The screen showed Michael in a small meeting room, sleeves rolled up, hair slick with sweat. In front of him were two employees with fear on their faces. One said rapidly, "Mr. Michael, the warehouse reported that suppliers have halted raw material shipments. They are demanding payment for debts, or they will sue us." Who ordered the halt? Michael groaned. All three major suppliers are saying the same thing. They received an internal directive from the distribution system, and they do not dare disobey. Michael slammed the desk. "Do not dare. I am their client." The other employee, his voice shaking, opened a folder. The bank has also sent a warning, requesting additional collateral due to a sudden drop in revenue. They said if we cannot show liquidity, they will block the company account. I closed my eyes for a moment. Clearly seeing the moment, he tried to swallow his panic. A man used to giving orders at home was now taking orders from papers and numbers. His phone rang. He answered, trying to be steady. "Hello, Mr. Garcia. This is Michael. Can you please help me with the order?" The person on the other line said something. Michael's face stiffened. His tone changed, becoming lower. "Do not say that. We have been working together for a long time." Then he went silent. After hanging up, he threw the phone on the table, cursing softly. He turned to the employees, whispering, "Do you know what they said? Temporarily suspended collaboration due to strategic adjustment." Those two words were exactly what I asked them to use. I heard it without joy. I just felt it was right. Like a clean cut, Michael stood up, walked to the window as if looking for air, and then turned around with red eyes. Who is behind this? The employees fell silent. No one dared to mention the name because saying it would confirm that their boss had long relied on his wife. Michael said it himself. "Sophia." After saying it, he laughed dryly again. The laugh of someone realizing it is too late. I did not hear that laugh in person, but seeing it on the screen was enough to know how bitter it was. In the afternoon, Michael went to the bank. He sat at the customer service counter with a tense face. The bank employee was polite, but every word was like a hammer. "You need to provide additional collateral, a repayment plan, transparency, and revenue." Michael showed some papers, but he was asked a simple question. "Is this property under your name?" He fell silent. He had nothing under his name strong enough to put on the table. I knew that because I once asked him if he wanted us to put things in both our names. He laughed and said, "I am a businessman. Paperwork is messy. Let me handle the business. You handle that stuff." Now, remembering it, I realized that mess was an empty net that tore at the first gust of wind. At night, Michael returned to the rental. Eleanor, upon seeing him, immediately asked, not about his health, not if he had eaten, but what always mattered to her. "Did you fix it? Will the money come again tomorrow?" Michael took off his shoes and threw his wallet on the floor. "Mom, you are still asking about money." Ella Laner was startled but clung to morality. "I am asking so we know how to organize ourselves, how we will survive now. You are a man. You must take responsibility." Michael suddenly turned. "Take responsibility where when they cut all collaboration with me? Do you think the company gets contracts by magic?" Eleanor froze. A moment later, her tone changed. It became sweet but venomous. "It is also your fault because you married a woman you could not teach. A woman with money sooner or later will step on her husband's head." I heard that phrase in an audio when Michael had me on speakerphone while talking to someone. I did not even get angry anymore. I just realized that people's mouths can twist anything to avoid admitting fault. When they refuse to look at themselves, they look at others. Chloe walked in at that moment with a small bag, looking tired. She no longer had her carefree look. She asked Michael in a weak voice, "And now, what do I do? My friends are asking for the money. We pitched in. How will I pay them back?" Michael looked at his sister with the tired gaze of someone who ran until he ran out of breath. "You did that. You fix it." Chloe was stunned. "What are you saying? I am your sister." Michael sighed, his voice sinking. "Because you are my sister. This hurts so much." Eleanor immediately pulled Chloe, protecting her. "Do not treat your sister like that. She is the only girl in the family. She is your blood." Michael smiled bitterly. "My blood? And did you remember that when I slapped my wife in front of you?" The question dropped into the room like a bucket of cold water. Eleanor fell silent. Chloe looked down. I do not know if they were ashamed, but at least they no longer had the confidence to tell me I needed to endure for the sake of family. On my end, I did not feel like I won. I just felt like I was cleansing my soul, cleansing it from the habit of justifying myself, apologizing, carrying the blame of others. They say cunning is for outsiders, but if at home you have to be cunning to survive, it is no longer a home. I turned off the computer and was the last to leave the office. Outside, the rain had stopped. Only the wind remained. I put on my coat and went to the parking lot. In my mind, the word leave no longer echoed, but a clear phrase. In a woman's life, sometimes you have to put a period to be able to start a new sentence with dignity. That night, the cold in New York was intense, the kind that makes you want to go home to eat something warm. Yet Chloe carefully applied makeup, put on strong perfume, and stood in front of the mirror of the small room, trying to recreate her version of a socialite. She wore a tight dress and a coat. She turned to Michael and asked as if it were natural, "Where is the card? I am going out for a bit. My friends invited me to a birthday." Michael, massaging his forehead, his eyes red from a whole day of facing debts, looked up. His voice was Horsero. "Do you see where we are? This is a cheap rental, not a mansion. That is why I need to go out. I am suffocating here. Give me money and I will be right back." A short, joyless laugh escaped Michael. "Money now. You are talking about money." Eleanor immediately chimed in, her tone a mix of pleading and demanding. "Go on, Michael. Give it to her. She is a girl. She needs to dress up so she does not feel bad. A little help in bad times is a big deal." Michael turned to his mother. "Mom, stop it with your morality. Do you not see she got used to this life because of someone?" Chloe grabbed her small bag and tossed her hair back. "I will just be a minute. If there is no cash, I will pay with the card. Do not exaggerate." Saying that, she left without waiting for an answer. The door closed with a dry, cold sound. Michael fell silent. Eleanor sighed like someone who had lost power but wanted to pretend everything was fine. "Do not be too hard on your sister. You share the same blood. That is more important than anything." Michael did not answer. He just looked at his hands as if he saw something slipping out of his control. Meanwhile, Chloe entered a popular downtown bar, loud and crowded, where neon lights passed over faces. She walked in with an air of superiority, greeted her group of friends with a bright smile, and said loudly to impress, "Long time no see. Tonight is on me." Her friends were used to luxury and talking about brands. Chloe ordered a round of drinks, some appetizers, and smiled. "Just chill. It is my treat." When it was time to pay, the waiter brought the terminal. Chloe handed the card with an arrogant gesture and a wink. "Charge it here." The machine beeped. The screen showed, "Transaction denied." Chloe froze, forcing a smile. "Ah, probably just a machine error." "Swipe it again." The waiter swiped it a second and third time. Still denied. One of her friends looked up and said, half joking, half serious, "Wow, with a card that nice. Maybe it is a bank holiday." The group laughed. Chloe, her face turning bright red, tried to maintain her composure. "Probably just a daily limit. Let me transfer it." She opened her banking app, but the balance that appeared made her hand stop. She quickly turned off the screen and turned to the waiter. "Can I borrow your Wi-Fi?" The waiter was still polite, but his tone had changed. "Mississippi, you need to pay right now." Chloe started to get nervous. looking for a way out. A friend dropped a light but sharp comment. Hey, Chloe, why don't you call your brother or your sister-in-law to bail you out? Laughter erupted again. This time there was no joy. They were laughs of mockery. Chloe bit her lip, digging her nails into her palms. She called Michael nonstop. He answered, hearing the music. He understood everything. He groaned. Where are you? Chloe spoke rapidly, almost crying. Brother, I am trapped. They will not let me leave. Please come here. Michael stood up. Eleanor, hearing something, grabbed a coat. My God, what happened to her? Hurry. Michael had no time to argue. He went out into the bitter cold and made a few calls to his contacts to borrow money. Some did not answer. Some made excuses. In the end, he had to take out a payday loan, accepting an extremely high interest rate just to scrape together enough for the bar tab. When Michael walked in, the lights of the venue made his face look even paler. The waiter handed over the bill. Michael looked at the amount, his lip trembling. Chloe was behind him, crying but trying not to break her mask. Michael paid and dragged her outside. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, the cold wind hit their faces. Michael suddenly turned, his voice breaking. Do you see the humiliation? Chloe sobbed. No, I did not know the card was blocked. I thought you thought what? Michael groaned. That for the rest of your life, someone would pay for you. Between tears, Chloe answered, But I am your sister. If you do not take care of me, who will? That phrase was the last straw. Michael slapped Chloe, not with the strength of someone wanting to hurt, but the slap of the helplessness of a man cornered so badly he had no other way to release his frustration. Chloe, stunned, brought her hand to her face and froze. Passers-by turned to look. Some took out their phones. Some whispered, Look, a fight in the middle of the street. Eleanor came running, seeing the scene. Why are you hurting your sister? Michael turned to his mother with bloodshot eyes. You are still defending her, because you defended her. She turned out like this. How long do you want me to carry everything? Eleanor lost her breath and cried, but this time it was a cry of fear. Fear of losing her son from her hands. Fear that her prestigious family was vanishing. I was not there. I only found out about it from a brief report from Attorney Thompson about Michael's high interest loan and a message that circulated in a few groups. A woman dragged out of a bar by her brother for not being able to pay. I read it and let it pass. That is life when a family lives on appearances. When it breaks, it falls loudly. Later, Michael called another person, Jessica. He thought he still had one refuge left. But Jessica's voice on the other line was strange. It was no longer sweet. Michael, I am tired. Fix your problems yourself. Michael froze. Do you not understand how much I am struggling? A cold laugh escaped Jessica. I understand, but I do not want to get involved. That phrase dropped like a cinder block. Michael fell silent for a few seconds and then asked in a low voice like someone who knows he is about to lose everything. Are you really going to leave me? Jessica did not answer directly. She just said, Take care. Do not call me again. She hung up. Michael, standing in the small room, looked at his mother, looked at his sister, and felt himself fading. Eleanor hugged Chloe, who was sobbing. Michael collapsed into the plastic chair, struggling to breathe like someone who escaped a fire but was still full of smoke. I put my phone down and got a glass of warm water. I was not happy about their suffering. I just saw clearly that when the money is gone, relationships that were never balanced collapse on their own. And I reminded myself of an old proverb. The one who truly loves you is the one who will make you cry. I gave them too much gentleness, hoping for peace, and they thought I was born to serve them. Now that I give nothing, they call it evil. But whether it is evil or not, the law and the truth will say. The next morning when I arrived at the office, Attorney Thompson sent a message. Someone wants to meet with us. She says she has important information regarding your case. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. A name immediately popped into my mind. Jessica. I was not surprised. People follow interests, not love. When you are rich, everyone partakes. When there is tragedy, everyone saves themselves. That phrase sounded painful, but life is often painful when you start waking up. I called Attorney Thompson, arranged the meeting in a private room. I will not go. Do everything by protocol with a recording. Understood. Just keep doing your work. Attorney Thompson replied. I hung up and continued with my schedule. Over the years, I learned something. Emotion can squeeze your heart, but it should not make your hands tremble. His voice was calm, but held a hint of seriousness. It is Jessica, as you expected. She wants to sell the evidence. She is asking for $200. 000. A bitter laugh escaped me. $200. 000 is a lot of money, but compared to what Michael would face, it was just the price of 100 shows for a traitor. Jessica knew Michael was thinking, and she wanted to cash in before the water reached her neck. What kind of evidence? I asked. Accounting receipts, emails, scanned files hinting at number manipulation, and a flash drive with internal data. Attorney Thompson said. I paused for a moment. I no longer felt the pain of jealousy. What I saw was a different perspective. Michael did not just live on appearances. He was also used to looking for shortcuts, twisting things, fixing them, and someone used to twisting the law on paper. Breaking a marriage vow was just a matter of time. What will you do? I asked. We will accept the evidence. We will create a receipt report with non-extortion or non-threat clauses. The money transfer will be done with proof, and then we will analyze the data. I nodded, even though he could not see me. Okay. In the afternoon, Attorney Thompson sent a copy of the report and a photo of a small black flash drive. It looked like an ordinary flash drive, but I knew that little thing could be the final nail in the coffin of Michael's career. I held the image of the flash drive in my mind for a moment and then put it away as if placing a cold stone on the table. I was not happy. I just saw clearly that I had tried to keep Michael on a decent path, but he chose the shortcut, and shortcuts usually go downhill. Meanwhile, at the rental, Michael also noticed Jessica was gone. He called, sent messages, tried other numbers, but it was useless. Michael was not used to being left. He was used to giving orders, having control. So when Jessica blocked him, he went crazy. At night, he received a message from an unknown number. You are on your own. I do not want trouble. No sorry. No missed you. As dry as a blank piece of paper. Michael threw the phone on the bed and faced his mother and sister. Eleanor was still complaining. Chloe was looking at her face in the mirror. The slap mark from yesterday was still slightly swollen. No one asked Michael if he was okay. They just asked, and now what? Michael stood up with a hoarse voice. What? What are we going to do now that all our paths are cut off? Ella Lehner used the opportunity to return to morality. You have to get your wife back. Marriage is a duty. She was wrong. Tell her to have a little mercy on her mother-in-law. Michael laughed like he was out of breath. Mom, do you think Sophia still has mercy for you? Do you remember the night you forced me to hurt her? Ella Lehner froze. Chloe interjected with anger. She is rich. She can do what she wants. But what she did is cruel. People will talk about her. Hearing people. Ella Lehner's eyes lit up as if she found a life preserver. She stepped forward and spoke quickly. Right. We will use public opinion. Today, everyone is afraid of being criticized. I will go on the internet to tell my story. I am a mother-in-law. I am old. People will pity me, and she will be forced to give in. Michael looked at his mother with a mix of exhaustion and anger. You will expose our family for everyone to see. Eleanor patted her thigh. Expose. I will tell the truth. She threw me out on the street. She cut off my money. Do I not have the right to complain? Michael did not answer. Perhaps he understood Eleanor was not complaining because of pain, but because she lost power. But at that moment, Michael had no strength left to analyze who was right. He only had one thing left, the fear of losing face and his livelihood. At night, I received a call from an unknown number. I did not answer. Then an anonymous message. Do not push it or we will expose you. I read it and deleted it. Those words did not scare me. It is just funny that when people run out of arguments, they use the crowd as a weapon. I sent a message to Attorney Thompson. It is possible they will try to smear me on the internet. Prepare the bank statements and the videos from the cameras. He replied immediately. I am already preparing it. Do not worry. He who owes nothing has nothing to fear. I read that phrase and suddenly felt lighter. Not because I was right, but because I was no longer alone in the fight for my dignity. I had documents, evidence, a process, and most importantly, I had boundaries. That night, I kept the flash drive in my personal safety deposit box, turned off the light, and lay in the dark. I did not think of Jessica or Michael. I only thought of one thing, clearly. When someone chooses to betray you, do not choose to forget. Forgetting can lead to apathy, and apathy can lead to repetition. And I do not want my life to repeat itself. The next morning, as I opened my computer, my assistant rushed in, her face somewhat tense. Mom Sofia, there is a live video on social media going viral, and it involves you. I did not ask who. I knew that in life people use tears as their last weapon when they are out of money, power, or a voice at home. I only asked one thing. Is the legal team ready? Yes. The assistant nodded. Attorney Thompson says everything is ready. I opened my phone, not to see how I was being insulted, but to understand the situation. The screen showed Eleanor sitting in front of a white wall with direct lighting that made her look even paler. She wore a dark sweater. Her hair was neat, and her eyes were red as if she had just finished crying. Chloe was beside her, sobbing occasionally. Michael did not appear. Perhaps he understood that showing up there would only expose his faults further. Eleanor raised her voice, trembling, but steady. Friends, I am an old woman. I did not want to do this, but my daughter-in-law is too cruel. She threw her mother-in-law out onto the street in the middle of the rainy season. She cut off my pension. Now my son and I are living in a cheap rental suffering. Comments started raining in. At first many pied her. Poor lady. Daughters-in-law today are terrible. Eleanor, seeing the support, gained courage and started talking about morality. A daughter-in-law should be respectful. My family is traditional. I just gave her cooking advice and she became rude. Chloe added fuel to the fire. She is rich and looks down on our family. Just because we are poor does not mean we do not deserve to be her relatives. I looked at the scene and clearly saw the strategy. They were not telling the truth. They were telling what touched people: an old mother, a rich daughter-in-law, a poor family. But life is not just tears. I muted the live stream and opened the folder Attorney Thompson prepared last night. The bank statements from the past 36 months, always on time, every 5th of the month. The exact amount of $10,000 along with it. The video from the rainy night. My screams could not be heard. Just a slap, the word leave, and the passive actions of Eleanor and Chloe. I sent 3 words to Attorney Thompson at the right time. His answer was just as brief. The right dose. We did not publish it as a response. Attorney Thompson did it from the law firm's account with neutral text. We are providing information to clarify the events. No sarcasm, no irony, just evidence. In less than 5 minutes, the tone of the comments on the live stream started to change. One wrote, the pension. The daughter-in-law was the one transferring it. Another asked. The mother-in-law said she cut her money, but it was not her money in the first place. Then a comment that froze the live stream. There is a video of him abusing his wife. I turned the sound back on. Eleanor, who had been speaking fluently, suddenly froze. Chloe looked at her phone with wide eyes. Clearly, they had just received the link that was spreading like wildfire. Eleanor tried to save the situation. Marital fights, that is normal. Everyone gets mad sometimes. But at that moment, the viewers no longer saw it as normal. The video was too clear. A slap is not teaching a wife. It is violence. The live stream flooded with comments like, you accept someone's money and then call her a freeloader. You throw your daughter-in-law out, then complain on the internet. You talk about respect, but you do not respect your daughter-in-law. Public opinion, which they wanted to use to pressure me, turned against them. They swed a wind of lies, and now they were reaping a hurricane of truth. Chloe interjected with a voice altered by panic. Do not believe it. Videos can be edited. Someone immediately replied, edited, and the bank statements that are perfectly clear. Eleanor sobbed, but her tears had no effect anymore. It only became more annoying because people had seen the truth. She was trying to manipulate. A moment later, the screen of the live stream shook and went dark. But turning off the live stream did not kill the story. The video was re-uploaded. The statements were shared. The photos circulated in all the groups. I did nothing. I just watched how the truth paved its way. That afternoon, passing by a meeting room, I heard a few colleagues talking. Michael's company lost another partner. I did not ask. I did not interject. It is normal for partners to fear moral and legal risks. Michael created his own risk, and I just took my hand out of the fire. At night, I received a message from Michael. "Are you happy now?" I read it and was baffled. He still thought I was doing this for fun, when all I wanted was to reclaim my dignity. Whoever sows the wind reaps the whirlwind, and the one suffering is not me, but his fake pride. I did not answer. I did not block him. I left it as another proof of his way of looking at life. Even when wrong, still blaming others. It was late. Mr. Peterson called to inform me of something. Michael went back to the subdivision. He stayed at the gate for a moment and left. I remained silent for a few seconds. I did not need to see that image to understand. There are people who only miss their house when they no longer have the keys. And there are people who only miss their wife when there is no one left to clean their path. I hung up. I got a glass of water and looked out the window. New York was still cold, but I was no longer cold inside. I understood something. When you stop being a doormat where others wipe their feet, they will complain and call you evil, but good or evil. My boundaries must remain, because that is the only thing that will stop me from going back to being the Sophia of 3 years ago. After the reversal of public opinion, the rental became as tight as a box, not because the room was small, but because they were all cornered in their own spots. Eleanor sat on the floor, holding her phone. Her eyes were red, but she had no strength left to yell. Chloe paced like a caged cat, whispering, "Embarrassing, so embarrassing." Michael was silent, the silence of a man who had lost the right to argue. He could not yell at his mother or sister because he was the one who pushed the button that started it all. Early in the morning, Michael put on clothes, combed his hair, and said a short sentence to Eleanor. "Where?" Eleanor asked. He did not answer. "To find Sophia." "Where else?" Chloe added. Bill did not answer. "I found this out from Mr. Peterson." He said softly, "Michael is outside the gates of the subdivision." "Ma'am, go ahead," I said. I did not need to know how long he was there. There are moments when people stop at a place, not to return, but to see what they lost. A few hours passed while I was reviewing the quarterly plans. Security informed me that someone wanted to speak with me at reception. An older woman. She said, "Your mother-in-law." I put my pen down. I was not surprised. It seemed everything was following the course of events. When you have no one left to turn to at home, you run to the doors of the company, thinking you can create a scandal there. I did not go down immediately. I called Attorney Thompson. "Are you nearby?" "I am in the building." "Let me go down first." He replied. I agreed, not out of fear, but because I did not want it to turn into an emotional drama that would be edited tomorrow and presented as the rich daughter-in-law pressing her mother-in-law. I had seen them act once. I would not give them a second chance. From the camera at reception, I saw Eleanor standing in the middle of the bright lobby of Vanguard Holdings. Her sweater was old. Her hair was neat, but her face showed deep exhaustion. She looked around. Perhaps this was the first time she entered a place where everyone walked fast, spoke softly, and operated like a machine. She was not used to it. She looked like someone lost in a market with no money. Attorney Thompson went out to greet her, politely, saying hello and inviting her to sit. Eleanor did not sit. She stared at him. Her voice was a mix of being firm and trembling. "I want to see Sophia. I am her mother-in-law." "Ma'am, Sophia is working. If you have something to say, you can relay it to me." Attorney Thompson answered. Eleanor gritted her teeth. Her tone suddenly dropped from demanding to pleading so fast that even she could not hide it. "Sir, please tell her I am old. I do not need much. I just ask that she reactivate the $10,000 monthly transfer. How will I survive otherwise?" Hearing that amount, I closed my eyes for a moment. For 3 years, she accepted it like it was her right. Now she calls it a plea. That is life. When you have it, it is a right. When it is gone, it becomes a favor. Attorney Thompson remained calm. "Ma'am, that amount was a voluntary contribution from Ma'am Sophia. not a legal obligation. She has already led the authorization. Eleanor's face turned pale. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. Are you saying she will really abandon me? I am her mother-in-law. Before Attorney Thompson could answer, she dropped to her knees. She collapsed in the middle of the lobby. The sound was not loud, but it clearly echoed on the polished marble floor. Some passing employees stopped. Some looked away. Some froze. Eleanor looked up, tears flowing, but this time she was not yelling. Sophia, my child, I was wrong. That was just a burst of emotion. Help me. I saw her on the screen, but my heart was not moved as she hoped. I saw the big picture. When she lived in the mansion, she treated me like a cook. Now that I am gone, she calls me her child. That change was not love. It was an instinct to survive. I sent a message to Attorney Thompson. Invite her to stand up and maintain order. I will come down, but just for a moment. I stepped out of the elevator and went down to reception. No rushing, no hiding. I stopped at a safe distance from Eleanor. Seeing me, she started crying louder, trying to grab the hem of my blazer. I stepped back half a pace. My voice was calm. Please stand up. This is a workplace. My child, I am going through so much hardship. I know I was wrong. I am begging you. She sobbed. I looked at her and pronounced every word without emotion. Are you begging because you are struggling or because you have no one else to turn to? That night, you saw how your son slapped me. You spat the soup on the floor. In that moment, did you think of me as a human being? Eleanor froze, tears still falling, but her gaze wavered as if she had been pulled back to a scene she wanted to forget. I regularly sent money. I saved your son's reputation. The return I received was a slap and a leave. I owe you nothing, but the duty of a daughter-in-law. She stuttered. I looked her straight in the eye. The duty of a daughter-in-law is not an excuse to insult another person's dignity. I am not an ATM, saying that. I nodded slightly to Attorney Thompson in security. Please help her out. Do not let her stay on the floor. I turned and left without prolonging the situation. I did not want to turn my stand into a public humiliation. As the elevator doors closed, I took a deep breath, not out of relief that I won, but because I did not fall into my old habit of softening, because of a few tears and carrying a weight that was not mine again. When I received the subpoena for mediation, my chest did not pound like it used to. It was just a cold normality. What needs to be fixed will be fixed. I wore simple clothes, tied my hair back, and brought only one folder. Attorney Thompson told me, speak little, let the paper speak. The mediation room was not large, smelling of air conditioning and old paper. Michael was already there. He sat upright, trying to maintain calm, but his hands clenched and unclenched as if holding back tension. Eleanor was not allowed in, but she hovered in the hallway, peeking in occasionally. Chloe was with her, face haggard. When I walked in, Michael stood up. His gaze darted to me, quickly, as if wanting to say something, but afraid. Attorney Thompson shook hands with the mediator and handed over the documents. Everything according to protocol. The mediator began. We summoned you today to discuss your divorce and related matters. Children, assets, financial obligations. We have no children, Michael said quickly, as if he had rehearsed it. As for assets, I am requesting a division of the house in Greenwich. I contributed to it while we were married. I looked at Michael without surprise. People regret many things, but what they regret most is what they bragged about. He wanted the house back to save what was left of his pride. Attorney Thompson opened the folder and placed it on the table. The sound of paper against wood felt like a seal on the house. This is Mom Sophia's personal property given to her prior to the marriage. It is under her name with a notarized premarital trust and deed of donation registered with the county clerk. I lived there. I contributed to its maintenance. The mediator looked at him. Living in a property does not grant ownership rights if it was established as personal property and supported by documentation. Michael turned to me. His voice was almost a groan. Are you really going to be this cruel? Sophia, you are leaving me on the street. You were the first to throw me out on the street. I said slowly and clearly. That phrase dropped into the room like a cinder block. Michael froze. Eleanor in the hallway seemed to hear it. No one could talk about morality anymore when the truth was this direct. Michael changed tactics, using emotion. We were together. Sophia, you cannot deny my effort. I worked. I took care of the company. All for the family. Attorney Thompson, without arguing, pulled out another stack of papers. Here is the proof of Ma'am Sophia's regular transfers for the family's expenses. Furthermore, Ma'am Sophia has evidence of domestic violence. What evidence? Michael yelled. Attorney Thompson opened his laptop and without sound showed the mediator the video from the security camera. I did not look. I had seen enough, but I saw how Michael turned pale. The paleness of someone who knows he cannot deny it. The mediator warned him. Domestic violence is an unfavorable factor in divorce proceedings. I was just angry. I am sorry. Michael stuttered. But there is more. Attorney Thompson placed another copy on the table. Aside from violence, Ma'am Sophia has evidence of Mr. Michael's infidelity. Here is the proof. At that moment, Michael no longer looked at me. He looked at the table as if he saw an irreparable crack. In that moment, I was not happy. I was just tired. A marriage that needed to be sorted out through evidence had lost all meaning. The mediator moved to financial obligations. Do you have any joint debts? No, Michael said quickly. The debts are under my company. Nothing to do with Sophia. We need to clarify the period when the debt was taken, its purpose, and if it was used for family expenses. Attorney Thompson said calmly, if Mr. Michael insists on dividing marital assets, we must also consider the corresponding obligations. I saw Michael jump. That gesture was more honest than any word. He might try to get the house, but what he feared most was dragging me into the mountain of debt he created himself. The mediator asked him, are you requesting to identify joint obligations? Michael swallowed. His lips were dry. No, I am not requesting. If Mr. Michael insists on dividing the house, Attorney Thompson said, staring at him, we have the right to ask the court to review all financial obligations taken during the marriage, including loans and related documentation. Michael immediately waved his hand. His voice broke. No, I withdraw the request for the house. That sentence came out faster than his scream. When he ordered me to apologize to his mother, I understood why. For Michael, losing the house was losing face, but taking on debt was losing his life. The mediator noted it down. Mr. Michael withdraws the request to divide the house. Both parties agree to the divorce. No children, no asset disputes. Each party will be responsible for their own financial obligations. I heard every word like a sentence for the past. Michael no longer looked at me. Eleanor in the hallway started crying. Chloe whispered, Mom, enough. When we signed the agreement, Michael's hand was shaking. I signed without hesitation. Attorney Thompson took the documents and nodded. We stood up and left. Stepping out of the courthouse, the cold wind hit my face, but I felt my breathing was easier. Some things only end when you lay them on the table. If you hide them in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in submission, they will silently rot and stink up your whole life. I did not look back, not out of arrogance, but because I understand that looking back does not improve the past. It only slows down the present. After mediation, I thought everything would stop like a boiling pot taken off the stove. But life is not like that. There are mistakes that do not end with a signature. But when you face the true consequences, a week passed. Attorney Thompson summoned me to his office. He placed a thin but heavy file on the table. He said slowly, the data from the flash drive is sufficient basis for the authorities to act. We followed the process. Receipt, analysis, and legal filing of the case. I looked at the file without joy or nervousness. I just saw clearly that Michael opened the door to his own downfall. I thought infidelity was the deepest wound in a marriage. But no, what truly destroys you is when the person you trust not only betrays your feelings, but also your principles. The day Michael was subpoenaed, he called me. His voice was no longer authoritative or accusing, just hoarse like a man who swallowed sand. Sophia, can you defend me? I only asked him one thing. What do you want me to say? He fell silent because he knew he could not defend what I did not do or cover up something he intentionally did. I just answered, Face your responsibilities. I will not get involved." The call ended. Maybe he was angry, maybe desperate, but neither anger nor desperation can change the truth. He who SWS reaps. If the father eats sour grapes, the son's teeth are set on edge. And if you made the mistake yourself, you yourself must pay. It did not take long. The news about Michael's company spread in the business world. Former partners avoided him. Banks closed their doors, and creditors went to his rental. Eleanor, who used to sit in a luxurious living room, now jumped every time someone knocked on the door. I did not witness those scenes. Just a short story from Mr. Peterson. On the day the creditors arrived, Eleanor ran with a bag, screaming to the heavens, while Chloe cried and cursed the injustice of life. Life is not unjust. It is just fair in its own way. Whoever lives at the expense of others will fall when that person stands up. The day Michael was taken in, Eleanor collapsed in the hallway. It was not an act, like in the lobby of my company. It was a real collapse. Chloe hugged her mother, screaming her brother's name, but the screams did not bring him back. All that was heard was the sound of a car door closing, as dry as the door of destiny. I did not go to him. Not needing to forgive does not mean I have to be there to watch him pay. I only needed one thing: to escape the cycle of violence and contempt. They could not last in New York. Eleanor and Chloe were surrounded by debts. They were evicted from the rental because too many people were looking for them. In the end, they moved back to a rural town in Ohio with a few suitcases to an old trailer with a leaky roof and damp floors. Not because I pushed them, but because they had nowhere else to go. In the small town, gossip spreads quickly. People do not need to know the details, just the result. They used to brag about houses and money. Now they came home with nothing. Eleanor started washing dishes at a greasy spoon diner. Chloe got a job at a commercial industrial laundry, standing in front of a machine all day. Two women fighting all day out of exhaustion, hunger, and longing for the past, and because neither wanted to admit fault. And me, after the divorce, I continued to go to work, to meetings, signing documents like before. Someone asked me softly, "Do you not regret it?" I just smiled. Regret leaving a place that hurt me? No, I only regret one thing: that I endured for too long until they thought endurance was weakness. 3 years passed. I am on the balcony of an apartment with an ocean view in Carmel by the sea, California. The sky is blue, the air is salty, and the waves crash with a steady rhythm like breathing. I established a small foundation to help women entrepreneurs, not to brag, but to put the money I used to send monthly to a good cause. I want that money to support those who deserve it, those who need help to get back on their feet, not those who use morality to oppress. I learned a simple but costly lesson. Love must come with boundaries. Love others as you love yourself. But to love someone, you must first love yourself. Patience is a virtue, but patience that leads to the trampling of your dignity is not a virtue. It is the abandonment of yourself. Dear listeners, if this story was interesting and worth reflecting on, please leave a like to support the channel. If you have any suggestions, do not hesitate to comment below to help us improve. Thank you for listening until the end. May you have good health and peace. Goodbye, and until the next.